Hey, welcome back, everybody. Of course, my name is Dr. Keith McNally, and this is the Question Guy podcast. I'm going to get this right, hopefully, the first time. This is Deepika Sandhu.
Perfect.
We had a conversation a couple of weeks back, and so I forget initially why I reached out to you for conversation, and I typically do after a while, and it's just for being old. But I remember part of our conversation and the impact that your story had on me, and and you also wrote a book. So I hope that we can have that conversation again because I think the rest of the world or the world that's listening to this conversation really needs to hear it. Can we have that
Let,
conversation?
absolutely. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So who are you?
Start off with the easy questions.
Please.
I am Deepika Sandhu. I am a Silicon Valley business executive and the author of a book, Hello Universe, It's Me, How I Scheduled a Breakdown, Manifested a New Life, and How You Can Too. I'm
That's
also
the
an
title.
That's the title. That was the second part was the subtitle.
Okay.
But yeah.
That's okay. Go ahead. And you have a
I'm
second
also
book.
an inspirational speaker and an authenticity coach. So I help people show up as all of themselves, as their truest selves in their lives, at home, at work, and everywhere in between.
Well, that's quite unique. I've never heard anybody call themselves an authenticity coach, but to be quite honest, we need more of that because I think that's that plus the word integrity, which is the word myself and some of my colleagues throw around that we don't see a lot either. And so I think the combination of those two are needed and they're lacking. So, what do you want to talk about first? The story that created the book or the fact that you're an authentic? Well, let's talk about your book, if you don't
Well,
mind.
yeah, they're all related, so it's
Okay.
perfect. It's perfect. The book is Hello Universe, It's Me, and the book is my own story of how I had to schedule a breakdown and restart my life. And I say schedule a breakdown because I was one of these typical type A personalities, and my day was scheduled to the nines many months in advance. Hazard of being a working woman, a professional woman, a mom, at the time, a wife, just busy living the life. And I was one of these people growing up, Keith. I did everything right, right? I lived completely by the book. I was one of the checkbox checkers. If you told me that these were the steps it took to live the good life, I was going to do it, right? So, whatever my teachers told me, my parents told me, movies, Hollywood, Bollywood, all of it, whatever it said to live that amazing life, I was all in. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it to make it happen. And I was checking those boxes through my whole life, trying to do right by everything.
And you did right by everything. I mean,
I did
you
right
checked
by
all the
it.
boxes. You did it all.
I checked every box. I had the amazing career, the fabulous education, the good looking husband, the nice house, the cars, the vacations, you name it. I had absolutely all of it.
But there's a but there somewhere.
There is a but after having it all, I found myself crying on the floor of my closet, wondering why, if I did everything right, everything everybody told me to do, society, social media, parents, teachers, to live an amazing life, why was that amazing life making me feel so sad? Why was I feeling so depleted? Why was I feeling so lost? And in that moment, I put on my Silicon Valley consulting hat and was like, I know how to solve problems. If I can solve problems for these tech companies and all these apps that are on your phone right now, I'm sure I can solve my own problem, right? So I decided I was going to figure out how I was going to get underneath my own life and understand why things felt the way that they did. What was it? What was the reason? Why am I here? And you know what I figured out by scheduling my breakdown and spending that time looking inward on myself? I found out that all those things I was checking the boxes on and all those things that I was trying to do in my life, none of those things equated to anything that was going to make me happy. In fact, I'd never even asked the question of what it would take to make me feel happy.
So you didn't put happiness on your checkbox list?
No, I thought if you got all the other stuff, that's what happiness is. Happiness
Oh,
is the mortgage and the husband and the house and the, hosting holiday parties, and looking great and going on vacations and posting smiling pictures of it all on social media. Isn't that happy?
apparently not. So
Apparently not.
you're gonna tell us what was the breakdown like? So you said you locked yourself or you hid yourself in the closet and you just cried.
And that
How
was
did you go about scheduling that? So scheduling it means you took time out of your life, I'm assuming.
I took time out of my life. I took 4 weeks off of work. And to the people at work, I said I wanted a week off for every decade. I was turning 40 and I wanted to celebrate. And to people in my personal life, I said, well, work gives you a sabbatical after X number of years of being there, which wasn't true. But I knew that I couldn't tell each side what it is I was really doing because telling people you're scheduling a breakdown isn't the most palatable of conversations to have with people. But I knew I needed this time to put the flashlight on my own life, to not work, to not do all the doing that I was engaged with each and every day, and instead really hone in and focus on me. So, what did that look like? It involved absolutely not working. So, a lot of times we go on vacation, but we're still kind of working, still kind of checking the email, still kind of taking a call here and there if we have to. None of that. Didn't do any of that. I decided, though, that I couldn't also go out flying around the world to go find myself. I had a young daughter at home, so I wasn't going to be like Julia Roberts and Eat, Pray, Love and heading off to Italy and India and Indonesia like she does. I had to find myself within my own life. So while my daughter was at school every day, I would just tune into myself, whether it was sitting at the coffee shop and just journaling, just giving myself time to sip my cappuccino slowly, whether it was taking up a painting class or going to yoga in the middle of the day with all the retirees and stay-at-home moms in my community. But finally doing things and giving myself these beautiful open spaces of time to actually take away the layers of busyness, take away the stressors that were consuming my day, and actually look at my life. We don't look at what we're doing, right? We just do it. We're like in the hamster wheel, right? Living the life, right? Doing the things that we do. And we don't really ever get to pause and step back from that. And what I tried to do was extract as much as I could of my day to day responsibilities and give myself that space and time to reflect in on me. And I'm so glad that I did because that moment, that time, that scheduled breakdown quite literally changed the trajectory of my life.
So you said you scheduled time, 4 weeks, but did you schedule the day? I mean, because you're so in tune to scheduling things, or
Yeah.
did you simply wake up that first day and just breathe? I'm wondering what that
Mm.
first day was like, to be quite honest, because
I,
that's the first day of transition.
yeah, I would say the first few days I was still feeling the need to be very scheduled, right? Because you're still coming down off this high of working hard, working long, this hustle and grind mentality that so many of us are sucked into and believe is completely normal. So retreating from that actually did take several days. But what I did start with was being really intentional about how I wanted to spend the time, right? So I knew I wanted to paint. I didn't think I could paint. I didn't know if I could paint, but it was always something I wanted to do. So I was able to have time planned with a painting teacher to paint. Or I knew in the mornings I just wanted to sit at the coffee shop and read a book or journal and with no other um expectation of my time, right?
Mhm.
So I was being very intentional with what I did, but it wasn't like day one, I'm like, oh yeah, I've made it. It's kind of like when you go on vacation. Vacation's great, but you don't fully unwind from work mode after a few days away. It takes a little bit of time to really distance yourself. So I would say after the first 5, 6 days, that's when you start feeling sort of the layers of busyness really lift off of your body.
So it took about a week for you to kind of hone in and focus on you.
Yeah.
And then when you started to do that, when did you start to really appreciate who you were?
Mm. It's interesting because I feel like when you slow down from the busyness, when we get out of that hamster wheel of just living the life the way we are living it each and every day, and you start doing things a little bit differently, like going to yoga in the middle of the day or going for a walk around the lake or, sipping your cappuccino slowly, like I said, you create these little pathways for new information to sort of land on you, right? And what I was doing by just slowing down, saying no to social obligations, saying no to family commitments, sitting in my open, vast space and time to just do a whole lot of not so much, was allowing those new pieces of information to come through. I feel like the universe, our world, it's always speaking to us. We just don't listen. We get these little nudges within, and then we're like, I don't know what to do with that. I'm going to get back to, hustling and grinding and cooking dinner and taking care of the kids and blah, blah, blah. So we don't let that information really sit with us for very long. But in this case, I had the space and the time that if a new thought or a new intuition or that little nudge sort of started to formulate for me, I could actually give it space to hang out with me for a bit and see what it means. And I realized my life was talking a lot and I really wasn't listening to it at all. And I didn't realize that until I really slowed down enough to be like, okay, I'm going to think about this now. I'm going to let that thought sit with me now and see where it takes me.
So, two questions. What did your world tell you, and where did it take you? What
Yeah,
can you share with us?
it told me I wasn't being my most authentic self. It told me that I was living a life that looked really good to everyone else around me, but to me, it didn't feel very good, right? I was in a relationship that I didn't need to be in, that I couldn't be my full self in. I was living a life that wasn't allowing me to express myself in all the ways I wanted to be able to express myself and to be. And I realized that I needed to make the changes necessary to show up in my life authentically as all of me, not to dim my light in front of certain people, not to have to play down my accomplishments in front of certain people, not to have to hide my interests or hobby or desires in front of other people, but rather to really feel confident and secure enough in who I am, my truest, most authentic self, and allow that expression to come forward in the life that I was living. But how that was going to happen, I had no clue.
Okay.
I had no idea.
Well, then I
All
won't
I
a
knew,
I
yeah,
won't ask that question. But so it sounds like with that slow transformation, you use the word authenticity a lot, and that's a good
yeah,
word to use. When did you fully appreciate your own authenticity? Like it couldn't have been at that moment. I'm
no,
thinking there had to have been a time, maybe even past the 4 weeks, that you gave yourself time to breathe and think and write and paint and
yeah,
yoga
yeah.
and spend quality time with your daughter. When did you learn who you really were?
I think that was a process. Those 4 weeks gave me the glimpses, the insights, the little sparks. I like to call them the soul sparks within us that life could be a different way, that there was a different way here, right?
Mm.
But it took a lot of time to really figure out who I was. I'm sure a lot of the people listening can relate. We spend a lot of time trying to please other people in our lives, right? Keep the equilibriums going in our relationships, right? And as we do that, as we engage in that people pleasing, we are truly forgetting a lot of who we are, where we are letting ourselves be for other people what they need, but not necessarily getting what we need to rejuvenate us, replenish us, and allow us to show up for everyone else the way that they may need us to show up, right? So even though my breakdown gave these beautiful glimpses of what I realized my life probably needed to be like, accepting that and truly being able to shift my life to transform in that way definitely took time. But those steps and the journey that happens from there on out was completely and totally worth it in every possible way. Because now, 5.5 years, almost 6 years post this scheduled breakdown, my life is completely different and truly thriving on all cylinders, right? And truly living a life that is a reflection of the truest expression of me. So no, did it happen overnight? Is it a snap of a fingers? You just go and like, schedule your own breakdowns and like boom, 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 you get there? No, not I wish, right? But no, it takes time to unravel, the reasons why we've ended up not being our truest selves, not being our authentic self, and rediscovering all of that for ourselves. That takes time.
What was the motivation for actually writing the book, though? People
Mm.
say they want to write a book, and majority of people don't ever do it. Even those who have gone through transformations such as your own, they keep it. They hold on to it. It's kind of like
Mhm.
another prized possession that they themselves know about and own because they've earned it. But you went and shared it. What
Yeah.
inspired the book?
The book sort of birthed itself, I think. It was this never ending, nagging feeling of you've got to write this, you've got to write this, you have to tell your story. I like to think of it as sort of that, the little nagging toddlers like grabbing on your jeans and going, listen, 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 mommy, listen, listen. This book was almost like that. It was like begging to be written. It was formulating in my head way before I ever put pen to paper. And I think it was a true creation that had to come forward. It was a story that had to be told. And I'm so glad that I did it because I wrote the story about my experiences, but what people take from the experiences is really compelling and amazing because different parts of it resonate with them that I I didn't have any idea would do that for people. But it wasn't that I sat down and said, I'm going to write a book today. No, that wasn't it at all. It was this story formulating and formulating and formulating. And then it just became clear I had to do something about it. I had to address it because it was just wanting to be told.
So once the book is now that the book is out there and once you've had it published and whatnot, who came back to you and said, "We're not in, I don't need names, but what did they say that, this was such an inspirational story for them or me personally that, put a smile on your face at the very least."
I was genuinely surprised at how the reaction was for the book. It surpassed any of my own expectations. And I think what caught me the most is how many people saw themselves in my story, right? Any person out there who is doing the hustle, doing the grind, trying to do right by their family, just going in that hamster wheel, trying to live through their life, but getting those little nudges that every now and then that I don't know, something doesn't feel right, something doesn't seem right, but continues to swat them down and ignore them. I think this book gave them a space to go, oh, wait a second, there's somebody just like me living my life who's going through the exact same things. And it didn't matter what socioeconomic class people were from. It didn't matter what ethnicity they were from. It didn't matter their gender. People found themselves in this book and in this story in such beautiful ways. I've been especially surprised at the reaction from men and how connected they felt to this story. That is definitely not something that I anticipated.
Can you give some insight into that, please? How did men relate to your story?
I think because, in many ways, I, as a business executive, have a lot of very masculine qualities, right? Hardworking, earning a living, a lot of responsibility for the family on my shoulders. And felt that pressure deeply, yet still felt this pressure to try to make this happy home and find meaning within it, right? And find myself with it, and realizing that doing the same things over and over again every day is the true definition of insanity. Nothing changes that way, right? Didn't Einstein say that? And I think for men, they're seeing, they face those same pressures very often, right? And so they're feeling into that and realizing that they want to explore their other parts of themselves and their life. And something about that just hit different for the men that read the book, which has been a beautiful thing to experience.
I want to go a bit personal with your daughter.
Mm,
Surely your daughter was, you said you had to be home, so you couldn't go like Julia Roberts, I think you mentioned, tracing all over the globe, trying to find herself. You had to stay home and you still had to be a mom.
yeah.
How did surely your relationship with your daughter now has blossomed, has changed, has is different because you said you're different. So even systems theory from academia says if one part of the system changes, the entire system changes. So what is your relationship like with your daughter now?
So part of the scheduled breakdown aftermath is that I do end up going through a divorce, and that meant that my daughter ends up having a two household lifestyle. And I really do think that she has thoroughly benefited from having two happy parents in their own respective homes, and that that's been a really powerful change. But way more than that, I think when you see your mom doing really cool things and showing up as a full expression of themselves, I think it gives her a lot of permission and ability to see that she can show up like that for herself. She tells her little school friends, "Oh, my mommy will publish your book. Did you write a book? I'll take it home to my mom." And she comes home with these little notebooks like, "Here, my friend wrote this story. Will you publish it?" I go, "That's not quite how it works, but okay, let's talk about it. Let's read it." And I think she sees the world as being really possible, that you can be a creative and a professional and a this and a that, and have a life that is really blended and reflective of all of the things that you like and enjoy. And even more than that, that I'm able to be this highly present parent for her. Living in that hamster wheel life,
Hmm.
I'm not sure how present I was for her, right? I'm not sure that I was truly doing right by her. But now that I've taken the time to really formulate my life, to align it to what I want, to my passions, and to my purpose, one of which is being a really great mom to my daughter, I can orchestrate my life, design it so that I can be that parent for her, right? And show up for her in those ways. And I think that's powerful. We'll see what she says as she grows up, but that's what I think.
I think that that testimony and that conversation, when she grows up, would be a good one to have. I really just have two more questions because out of my curiosity, the first one being most people can't take a sabbatical. Well, a 4 week timeout from personal and professional life. They got to pay the bills, they got to live their
Yeah.
life, but they want to experience the transformation that you did. And I don't want to talk about your coaching because I'd like you to come back to my other series, Coach's
Yeah.
Corner, and talk about your professional self. But for this conversation, what would you recommend for people who can't take that sabbatical, but really need to find out who they are authentically?
I love this question because everything I did were shifts that I made in my regular everyday life to change my life. So, yes, I was fortunate that I could take time off and kind of go deep into it. But for those of you who cannot do that, really just thinking through, what is your day to day pause practice going to be? What is your day to day connection with yourself going to be? What is that going to look like for you? Figuring that out for yourself and creating that connection with yourself day in and day out is going to allow you to shift in your everyday life. So, how do you do that? If it's journaling for you, if it's sitting in silence for you, if it's getting up and walking outside in nature, if it's gardening, what are the things that really light you up, that get you feeling connected, that get you feeling more like yourself? And I'm not talking about once in a blue moon spa days or, a once a month, night out with friends. Not that stuff. The stuff that's within your regular everyday life that lights you up and gives you joy. How do you add that into your day? So I had one of my clients say, when I suggested this to her, she said, "It's rollerblading. I just need to rollerblade every day." I was like, fantastic. Go rollerblade every day and take your 20 minutes and go do that, right? But whatever that is for you out there, if it's, hitting the gym, if it's walking around the block, if it's having a nourishing conversation with a friend, and making that a priority, if it's indulging in, you know, a beautiful piece of chocolate for 5 minutes that just like hits you in all the right places, that's okay too. But find those ways that you pause and connect with yourself each and every day and create the space and the time to do that. That can create the most powerful, beautiful shifts, right? And when you do get those little nudges, like, Keith, you shouldn't be doing this. Oh, you should really try this. Or, you really want to do that. Listen to that voice for a minute and go, oh, let me think about that. Not, no, 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 no. I can't think about that right now. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm not going to do that. I've got these other 50 things to do instead. Give yourself space, time, permission to actually think about it and see where it takes you.
I think that's wonderful. And I typically end these types of conversations with like some type of insight, but I think you just gave it. So my last question is, will you come back? Because my other series is Coach's Corner, and I would like to know how you really make that impact from a professional coach, an authenticity coach. And I'd like to have that conversation as well.
I am so excited to have that conversation with you. So, yes, absolutely. I'll be back.
Well, Deepika, Sandhu,
Yes.
thank you for this conversation. This has been another edition of Question Guy Podcast, and we'll see you next time. Take care.